And away we go. Pretty sure the audio seems to be working. You guys let me know. You let me know, Old Magon's twin, if the audio is coming through. It should be. Should be. Good to see you. Today we'll be painting a Stormcast Eternal Face. I got some brushes from Golden Maple. Well, they were kind enough to send me some brushes. So I think a good test of a brush's worth is how well it helps you paint faces. So that's what we're gonna do. Might paint some armor as well. Elmagon's twin says it works. Audio is working. Happy to hear it. You see, I could paint some Tyranids. I do have some Von Ryan Leapers. Well, let's be real. They're just Leapers. I do have some Leapers I could paint, but I just don't feel like. Well, like while the Tyranid paint scheme, while the High Fleet Gengar paint scheme looks good, I just don't quite feel that it is the best demonstration of a brush's ability to apply paint on a model. I think painting a face, painting armor, building up some layers in a more traditional paint scheme can work. The High Fleet Gengar paint scheme is more laborious than it is a true display of painter's skill, in my opinion. So I think we're going to try well, you know what, we'll just put a base color down first. That's what we're going to do. That is what we're going to do. Misfit, welcome to the stream. Good evening to you as well. So what's on everybody's hobby desk? I have a Stormcast. I have a spearhead of Stormcast, actually. But we'll be just doing this one Liberator here. I think I'm going to go for a cooler skin tone palette. I have a little paint recipe here from a Vallejo paint set. Kind of like there's like a cool side and a warm recipe. Well, the camera has so much zoom power I can't display it. In any case, I have a paint set that I got a while ago, and I use it from time to time when painting flesh tones, so we're going to be doing the cool blue tone skin. So I'll procure the paints that it requires. We have cold flesh, we got, what else we got? Got pale flesh medium tone, then we got our undertone for shadows, and in this highlight color, white flesh. So that will be our recipe. I might deviate though, we'll see. Might go off script. We'll see how it goes. It'll be a bit of an experiment. It's always fun to mix your paints. Omegon's twin says, bugs go burr. I am waiting on some Tempestus Aquilons to arrive. Tempestus Aquilons. Is that for the old kill team, or are you playing full-size Imperial Guard? Misfit says, I was doing some stuff on my Thousand Suns Terminators this morning, and sliced a finger. Made things a bit sore now. Laugh out loud. But I have a bunch of rubrics part built. Working on the rubrics. Hey, that rubric detachment, I forget what it's called, but I was perusing. That makes me scared to face on the tabletop. I do not like the potential of the rubric marine detachment. I think it could be oppressive. Okay. So I'm just going to remove the shield. Best part about push-fit miniatures is you can kind of claim the best of both benefits. You can sub-assembly and then stick it back on for some cool whip photos. Get some cool whips. Okay, we'll use an old Green Stuff World brush to apply our base layer of cold flesh. Eric Brandenburg, hail to you as well. Misfit says the Rubricae Phalanx. Yes, that's the detachment. The Rubricae Phalanx. Oh, God. You know, when I was first looking at the codex, I didn't look at the data sheets. I was just looking at the detachments. And I read over the Rubrikai rule set, the toolkit there. And I was like, okay, the detachment rule doesn't have regenerating models. The enhancements don't offer it. The stratagems don't offer it. So I thought, you know, maybe GW decide to rein it in. Because that was kind of oppressive even back in 9th edition. We're just regenerating Terminators everywhere. And then, to my surprise, one of the leaders that you just attach to your units will allow you to put a guy back in every turn. Like, oh my god. Oh my god. Look, I'm sure it'll get balanced over time, but makes me very nervous when you have these like -1 to wound, 4 up, 2 up, 4 up anvils that you can put models back in. Put units back in. And then you have all this dust on top of that for a little extra layer of resilience. Crazy. Crazy good. It's not even the strongest one, which is probably a good mark of the codexes overall. Internal balance, and I guess it's mechanically creative. You know, I was hoping that one of the detachments inside of the Thousand Suns Codex would be akin to the Eldar's Farseer detachment. I thought that would have been really cool for a Cult of Prophecy style list. Okay, I'm just going to thin down this paint a little bit. A little bit. Maybe it'll be too thin. We'll see. The last thing I want to do is clog up the face, you know? And then you're looking like, what am I even painting? Oh, it's quite a blue skin tone here, almost looking like a Tau or something, but you know what? This is just the base color. Gotta keep that in mind. Don't freak out, everybody. Eric Brandon said it's also my birthday. Well, happy birthday to you, Eric. I hope you treated yourself to some hobby goodness today. I'm just gonna move the paint around because I am a little scared that this will be clogging up some detail. I don't want that. Yeah, it's probably okay. It looks thin enough. Even if it isn't perfect coverage, we can use that variety, that uneven coverage to get some variety in our tones. While it dries, I'll put down some armor color just to help with the overall readability. Selfishly, I am thinking about the thumbnail, the before and after thumbnail. But there it is. This is the color I've been using for the armor on these guys. And it's a nice off black, but it's sadly running low. Eric said you said Tau just a minute ago. Please watch your language. This is a family stream. Like, I don't hate the Tau, right? I did a thematic list build on them recently. I think they're neat. I think they got something to offer. At the very least, as a foil. As a naive, young, upstarting faction. With, like, unaware of the full depth of how grim and dark the galaxy is, right? At the very least, they're good for that. Fat Man's Kitchen says good evening. Good evening, Fat Man's Kitchen. Okay. So for the armor color, I'm just kind of gonna haphazardly apply this. It is fairly watered down. I guess you want to be a little bit mindful of the base. One ought to be mindful of the base. Usually I do the base work at the end, but I thought I would start the base on these ones at least. I mean, cutting out the the squares for the tiling has to be done before you paint, I think. Omicron's twin says, I hate the towel on the tabletop, but do you hate how they look on the tabletop? Do you hate how they play? Maybe it's a 10th edition issue. I think the Tau are hurting creatively on the tabletop this edition. I just feel like marker lights could have been so much more creative, so much more interesting, like how they used to be, when you could stack them up and just put something down with the reliability of a Space Marine, of an O the Moment Space Marine, that is to say. I mean, the guiding and spotting and observing and finding and all of that, it works well enough, but I liked the layers. I think it's another case of the GW overcorrection, right? Actually, that's a common trend in 10th edition, right? Because the 9th edition faction rules were so overly complex. They were, like, annoyingly complex. And so they've overcorrected them and made them super simple, but I think... And I'm doubtful people would disagree that it's to a fault. Misfit says, I'm a Tau player, smiley face. Though, not played them for some time. I get that. Look, you can identify as a player of a faction, despite not playing them currently. It's too hard to play everything back and forth, right? Like, I honestly am super impressed by any of the Battle Report creators you'll see just jumping week to week, different factions, different armies. It's such a... It's hard enough to play one faction well. Wait, correction. It's hard enough to remember all the rules for one faction. Fat Man's Kitchen says, I want to do a Titanfall-themed Tau list, but alas, I've got too many projects already. I hear ya. Look, that's actually why I made the Titanfall thematic list build for Tau, because I think it's an awesome idea. I'm with you. It's a case of parallel thinking there, Fat Man's Kitchen. A case of parallel thinking. So it's a super cool idea, but too many projects. Oh look, we've nicked the armor. We'll have to clean that up, and then we'll go back to face painting. Okay, what is our next color? We're gonna build up with some pale flesh. And you know what? Maybe we'll try out a brush size 0. Brush size 0 from Golden Maple. I told you guys Golden Maple sent me these brushes. They sent me a... What is it called? A discount code and a link. So if you want to buy Sable Air brushes, I believe the link's in the description. And so is the discount code. I think it's like a 10% discount code. It might actually be the channel's first discount code, now that I think about it. I've gotten links, like, you know, for instance, from Martell before, but never a discount code, I don't think. So it's pretty cool. So we'll use this size 0 brush. There's the plug. Plug's over. And how do we want to paint this? I feel like the lighting is not doing the stream justice. Okay, we're gonna adjust the scene. Everybody, hold on to your butts. think if we lower this, but then tilt, I think we'll get something better. Golden Maple sounds suspiciously Canadian, says Eric Brandenburg. Could be. Could be. Is this better? I want to believe it's better. I would like to believe it's better. Okay, it must be better, right? It must be better because I feel like what I'm seeing is 1,000,000,000% more clear. So now we're going to start building up the areas that are going to have a bit of a highlight. And hopefully it comes together at the end. That's the goal. That's the goal. You just put down paint, mix it around. If it looks bad, you put down more paint. And then you keep adding more paint until it looks amazing. She's got like a bang, a stray hair right down the middle of her face, which is not gonna make it any easier. Eric Brandenburg says, at Omegon's twin, that better be my hand on my butt. Omegon's twin says, at what the 40k, thoughts and opinions of the Fourth War of Armageddon. I thought it was a bit worse than the others. Also, screw Logan Grimnar. Is the Fourth War for Armageddon... Now you'll have to clarify this for me. Is the Fourth War of Armageddon the one referenced in the current campaign that's coming out with the Grey Knights and Space Wolves release? What number are we at? I guess is the real question. I guess to answer your question directly, Omegon's twin, I can't recall the events of that particular exchange. So I want to say I'm not familiar with the events of said event. Fourth War is the new one. Okay, now we're cooking. So, yes, so I'm not up to date on the new lore drop. It was something I was waiting to talk to Northern Exile about, because I'm quite sure he's following the events of that campaign pretty diligently. Maybe I should have left the other arm off too, just so I can get a better angle on all of this. Right, because you want your side nose. So we're blocking in all the. I know it appears as though I'm just overwriting the work I just did, and in a sense, I sort of am. But with each layer we block in, kind of creating guidelines. A little bit of a zone which indicates to me which way the light gradients should flow. Omegon Swin says it features Grey Knights, Templars, and Space Furries dealing with Angron. Yeah, so my assumption is that it would be a campaign that sees Angron killed at the end, as per usual, because that's why you make him immortal. But You would hope that they all have to work really hard for it. But if you want to drop the details of the spark notes there, Omegon's Twin, of how that campaign resolves, I'd be very curious. Gotta kind of lower this upper edge. And we're gonna pull. Look, we're getting somewhere already just by blocking in the shapes like this. Might be a good opportunity to block in the eyes as well. Just the whites, just kind of the... Okay, we're gonna overblow them and then dial it back as per usual. I do like painting the eyes a little bit larger. I kind of stray from the modeled detail quite often. So it becomes a little bit of a freehand situation, but also makes things more forgiving as a bonus. Then we'll adjust the shape in the future. So it might look a little Monster Mash, guys. It might look a little Monster Mash. It's like that awkward stage in puberty when you're some sort of half evolved creature, but we're making progress. We're making progress. Eric Brandenburg says, at What the 40K, have you seen the Northern Exile video about the 40K player having his car stolen at Adepticon? No, I didn't watch that video. I watched the rant from earlier today, or the Hobby Nightmare from earlier today. Or maybe it wasn't today's upload. I watched one today, but it wasn't about the Adepticon episode. That is... Surely that is just bad luck, right? No, I guess I have to see the story. Maybe I'll just do that. Omegon's Twin says, at What the 40K, so Grey Knights use magic stuff. To bring the Templars and Wolves to the planet because it's been corrupted by chaos, and the Red Angel's Gate, which keeps summoning demons. Templars get the harder fights on one half of the planet, and Space Wolves speed blitz all of theirs and go to help the Templars. But Grimnar gets mad that Helbricht is purging a now Chaos Hive city. Oh, okay. So Logan Grimnar gets to be a bit more sensible, trying to rein in Helbricht, who's going off mission. He's getting too driven by his emotions. Look, I think it's important for Logan Grimnar to not be dumb. Because in the Wolf Time Dawn of Fire series, in the Wolf Time novel within the Dawn of Fire series, Logan Grimnar is an absolute tool. So I just think you need to have your leaders acting reasonable. Unfortunate for Helbricht this time. It seems like Games Workshop can't. Someone's gotta act stupid. They don't know how to write a story where everyone's acting reasonably, and they have to find some other way to create drama, it seems, in the story, in the narrative. So, someone's gotta act like a retard. Someone's gonna act so stupid. I hate that. Because it feels bad in this case for Black Templars fans. Zacharias, wait, welcome to the stream. Zacharias says, been a while since I caught one of your streams, if you don't count Northern Exile. Lol. Yes, I haven't, well, I've taken a break from streams for about a month or so, I want to say. But yes, good to see you. Good to see you, Zachariah. Actually, you know what? I got some black on the palette here. We're just gonna mix this cold shade color we've been using with some black, just to push the shadows as far as we can go for things like the eyes. You kind of just want the ability to push the darkest areas. A bit darker than what the skin color would be. That's the idea anyways. Honestly, the shape isn't too bad thus far. Not too bad. And I kind of like how the skin's reading on this angle. This ridge above the eyebrow, that's pretty good. It's like we're getting a nice, it's kind of like a warm light with a cool shadow tone. I like the look. I like the look. I'll start painting the mouth though, because we're lacking definition there, and it's affecting the perception of everything else. I like to kind of work on all the areas evenly if possible, and raise them all up so you get a fair understanding how our one area is looking relative to another. I think that's best practice, honestly. Eric Brandenburg says, do they destroy the gate? That's the real question. I'm sure they must destroy the gate. Okay, what is Omegon's twins' answer? Then the Grey Knights go to close the Red Angel's gate. Oh, go to close the Red Angel's gate, but Angron conveniently makes it back to real space after dying once and kills 2 Dread Knights and mortally wounds a Grand Master. The Grand Master throws himself and Angron into the gate, and it closes, marking the end of the war. So what of consequence happens from the story? That's my question. What are the consequences? Right? Like you watch a movie, you watch a middle part of a movie, or the latest, the latest entry of a series, and you expect to be in a different position after its end, right? So where are we now? Nothing. Omegon's twin says nothing. Of course. Of course. And for the record, it may sound like I'm upset. I'm not upset at you, Omegon's twin. I appreciate that you're just the messenger. It's not your fault. Everybody in chat, don't hate on Omegon's twin for telling us this terrible story. It's not his fault. He's just the messenger. You don't shoot the messenger. Okay, what did I say I was going to paint? The mouth. Right. Do I have any alive paint on my palette? No. There's a burgundy that I think works pretty well. But it's looking a little A little thin. A little thin. Look at that. There's no coverage here. Okay, so... So I don't want to use Screamer Pink because that is actually a little low. A little low. We're going to use this purple shadow color. There it is. Purple shadow. Omegon's twin says, I hate Logan Grimnar even more now for being emotional to the point of stupidity. Oh no. I guess I spoke too soon. I assumed he was getting to be a rational commander, and Helbricht was being the emotional baby. Are you saying Logan is yet again acting like an emotional baby with terrible decision making? That sucks, because now he's like the oldest looking chapter master. We don't know how Dante looks. He doesn't have a helmetless face, so he might be older looking if we saw his face. But that new Logan Grimnar, he should be wise, right? He should be a wise and tempered commander, right? The calm in the center of the storm, right? That's kind of... The model looks just so good. It bums me out even more. Oh my god, Swift says Dante needs some lotion. Yeah. Among other things. Among other things. You know, here's a Blood Angels question. Does Dante have a successor lined up? I think I've only read, or listened, rather, to 2 40k audiobooks for the Blood Angels. I mean, both of them. They talk a lot in the book how Dante is so old. But I don't really think there's any... Is there any defining of who will take the mantle? Because that should be a pressing concern if you're a super old chapter master, right? I think once you're that age as a chapter master, you should essentially be grooming someone to take the reins. Especially after such a close call in the devastation of Ball, right? Because they were basically on the brink and they were saved by not one, but two. 2 dynamic entries of surprise. We can't let the Blood Angels die. God, it's terrible. You know, I enjoyed the majority of that book until the end. I was like, oh, this is ruined. This is so lame. I think the only parts I didn't like during the book were just how the book couldn't help but stroke Mephiston. Is so off-putting. Omicron's twin says, I don't know, but at this point he probably does. He dies whenever Sanguinius decides not to revive him again. I mean, that sounds about right. But, yeah, I think you should always be having this... The theme of succession, right? I think that should be a big part of Space Marine command structures, if you think about it. And if they don't talk about it, it kind of damages the believability. And I suspect they don't write about it because it's like a fixed perception of the universe, right? Because these are models, and the models, they don't want to kill off the models that you play with. Actually, you know, like, oftentimes they don't even want to write characters that don't have models. That's, yeah, it's super lame. Super lame. That's probably what it is. You know, if we think about it, it's probably the answer. Might have to get the even smaller brush. Maybe this brush is not accurate enough. We gotta block in the cheek line. And I think it might actually help to paint that hair that's crossing her face. So we'll get some of this black that I just have on the palette here. I think the hair is going to be black, or like a blue black, something dark. Right, so once we paint that in, it should help with the perception of what exactly we're looking at. Zacharias Wade says, Ultramarines in red armor according to Gabriel Seth. Too bad he was right. Yeah, he was right in that that little rant he has in Devastation of Baal. Part of me is annoyed by that perception of his, but I understand, like, you want to give that position a voice. But also, GW didn't have to position Primaris as being flawless at first. That honestly seems just like... They added in all these elements to Primaris to make them unlikable. Almost, to me, it feels compensatory because they knew what they were doing rules-wise. Right? We're going to just make them the best. They're going to be twice as good. Twice as many wounds, right? These are your big boy Space Marines, right? So to compensate against that, I feel like they just gave them these terrible lore points that they walked back on, right? Part of that being how flawless they all were. Now all of a sudden flaws are back. Well, not all of a sudden. This is old news. Eric says, back to Logan Grimnar vs. Helbricht. I guess they were going for the conflict in valuing human life when having a homeworld versus being fleet-based. Omegon's Twin says, another criticism of the Fourth War. If Armageddon is the Steel Legion... Oh, I see what you're saying. Another criticism of the Fourth War is Armageddon is the Steel Legion being barely mentioned. And I think the Krieg are mentioned more than them. That's so lame. Super lame. Want to push that new product. You know, funnily enough, they're so similar looking, like you could really just paint your Kriegsmen as Steel Legion for the most part, and they'd probably look fairly accurate, to be honest. Zacharias Wade says, I like how they are made real flesh tearers as the story progresses, though. Because if it has eliminated the flaws, it would have completely ruined the bloodline of Sanguinius. But anyway, back to the other discussion. Yeah. No, it's a fair point. The flaws are what define them is understandable, right? It's not wrong. Seth is correct in that statement, but I don't like how there's no consideration to this idea that if they don't have their flaws, though, they're more effective at what they do. And I feel like that should at least be partially mentioned or considered if we are to believe that they are in a universe that is so difficult to survive in, right? Because then there should be a consideration of, hey, actually, that's kind of good. And then when the flaws start emerging again, it becomes all the more tragic. Yeah, you know what? I like that better. I think that sits better with me. If we could have a go back and have it go that way, I think you still get Seth to represent that position, and the story is more tragic, and it's also more believable because they're acting as if the universe is hard and difficult. Omegon's Twin says, all of this said, none of those are still my biggest criticism of the story. Well then, Omegon's Twin. Pray tell us the lowest lows of the fourth war for Armageddon. Kind of want that to be blue though. Or I kind of want the eyes to be blue. That's what I meant to say there. Words. Words are hard. Let's use our off blue color. So the plan, I'm going to go in with an even darker color, and then I'll try a super bright spot highlight with a vibrant blue. And then maybe, I'm trying to find a way to paint eyes that for better readability, where you want to have a colored iris, but I think you just need to have the barest hint of suggesting it. I think that's how you want to go about that. I feel like I just erased everything I did. We'll see. I have to darken the eyelids at some point. Omegon's Twin says, the most annoying part of the story is something you finally mentioned at the Krieg with pushing a product. The amount of times they hint at a new Space Wolf kill team is the most obvious. Obnoxious shit. Yeah. Oh, that's gross. They bring up Wolf Scouts, a unit that has barely been mentioned ever before this. Every damn chance they get. It's a bit gross. Yeah, it's a little distasteful. Like that's... yeah, it definitely creates a kind of stain on your campaign, these narrative updates, right? It kind of removes their... any sort of pedigree they could hold as advancements in the lore, right? The lore which we place on a pedestal, right? Because if every time you read an entry in a campaign book and it's just product mention after product mention after product mention, it's just going to devalue and take you out of the story, right? You want these lore updates to, I don't want to say timeless, timeless from our world, which edition they came out in, which products and codex was this, right? You don't want your lore updates to feel that way. You don't want them to feel tagged by which codex they're trying to reference, I guess is the right way to think about it. Let's try painting the mouth. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? I don't like that. It's kind of the thing about faces. It's gonna look bad. If it's not something you like, it just looks bad. That's it's kind of a pass-fail. At least for myself, that's how I feel about it. Okay, so we're going to frame the eye a little bit, well, quite a bit actually. And from there, we'll dial back those lines with our blue layers. I'll get some cool blue. Oh god, we just ruined it all. We just ruined it all. Spoke too soon. Okay, look, we saved it. Disaster averted. It's almost like I have the ability to undo. Yeah, what a quality of life that would be for for painting miniatures. Eric Brandenburg says, it'd be interesting to see Gabriel Seth's reaction to a reconstituted Knights of Blood chapter of all new Primaris. He probably loses shit, right? But I guess that's that's a pretty on-brand prediction for Gabriel Seth. Painting skin is really hard. It can be. It definitely can be. I mean, having a recipe or a guideline certainly helps, but I think it also comes down to like art direction as well, and the kind of effect and lighting that you're trying to go for. It is a fun nut to crack, though. At least I think so. I'm going to use a little bit of Prussian blue. We'll try that for an eye color, and we'll see if I just bork the whole paint job here, but I think it is dark and saturated enough blue. It should work if we kind of we can just do it right. It should work. Let's try and add some brightness on this side of the face. Gotta paint the nose. Can't forget the nose. Fun fact, the Dark Angels have never seen an Inquisitor. That can't be true. That sounds like Dark Angels propaganda. I don't believe it. Alright, bump up the nose color a little bit. I gotta do something about these teeth, right? Actually, you know what? I'm going to put contrast in the mouth. I think that's a simple, quick trick. A little painting trick that probably would work well. So we're going to paint the teeth color all over. And the teeth color is just the pale skin color. So we're going to let that sit in there and do its thing, and then we're going to put contrast in there. Eric Brandenburg says no every time the Inquisition sends out an Inquisitor, but doesn't hear back from them. The Dark Angels always reply with, "Haven't seen them, but we'll keep an eye out." Oh, that is a fun fact. I'll give you that one. You're telling me without telling me. What's the implication? The implication is the Dark Angels are offing all these Inquisitors. But would it not be... Isn't that just too suspicious? Wouldn't it be better to just be sufficiently good at keeping your secrets so that the Inquisitors do go back and report? And they're first founding chapters, so they're kind of immune, really. Barring legitimate heresy. Sorry about that, just checking some messages, but everything is good. The contrast I'm going to use for the face is or for the mouth. The words that come out of my mouth, probably Volupus Pink. Volupus Pink. I'll probably use this color. Maybe we'll dilute it a bit. We'll see. Omegon's twin has returned with food. Oh, now you're just bragging. What are you eating, Omegon's twin? Eric Brandenburg says they are not offing the Inquisitors. All too often, it's a tragic accident when the Inquisitor kindly helps the Dark Angels test/repair the airlocks. Yep. Well, that's how it goes, right? Actually, we're gonna try. As I keep looking at it, I don't know if it's just my imagination. I feel like it's slowly getting better and better. Slowly getting better and better. It's like you gotta manifest it, you know? If it's not looking good, you have to believe it's looking good. I think I can get away with barely painting this side of the face because it's obscured by that collar. By this side of the face, I mean the side facing her back. But we're gonna have to do something about this hair, right? So let's start blocking it in. Hopefully that should help with readability. I mean, you know what, even... had a thought that maybe we could do something fancy, but I think we'll keep it simpler. I think getting the face to look good is already a challenge. Eric Brandenburg says, I had barbecue pork and ribs from K&L today. One day I hope at What the 40K gets to try them. Their beef brisket is top notch as well. Oh, beef brisket? Barbecue pork ribs? I am envious. Omegon's twin says he's eating chicken. Or chimkin. It's either chicken or a chimkin, which might be a cultural dish that I'm not familiar with. Okay, and mixing a little bit of the pale flesh color with the Prussian blue has given me a brighter blue, and I just want to see if I can just dab, just to suggest a glint. Not quite. We ruined it, but now I gotta ruin the other side for consistency. Gotta ruin both sides. I'm gonna put more Prussian blue back in. And it actually might have different readability now that it's going over a brighter color, but we'll see. We'll see. Omegon's twin says chimkin is just chicken, but memed on the internet. Well, today I've learned. Eric Brandenburg says, out with the 40K, I purposely wore my buttonfly jeans today. So full. Barely spent 50 USD. Wait, how much barbecue are you eating for 50 USD? This is crazy to me. It's gotta be a lot of barbecue. We could probably suggest an eyebrow. That might help for readability as well. It's something I often hate on Warhammer minis with painted faces. I feel like a lot of people ignore the eyebrows, but I'm like, the eyebrows I feel like are everything. Okay, we're going to try and clean up these eyes some more. It's like a battle. See, the real battle isn't on the tabletop, guys. The real battle is painting eyes. That's a quote. I should probably shake up this contrast, huh? Eric Brandenburg says, dude, they do half a barbecue chicken and 2 sides for about $12. Hey, that's... Yeah, now we're talking. Now we're talking. Okay, we're gonna dilute this a bit. See if it's a bad idea. We're just gonna use water. Low technology over here. We're not using any contrast mediums or anything like that. I got my hooked brush here. It's a very, very fancy hooked brush. You see, I didn't leave this brush bristles down in my paint pot for an extended period of time. That's not how this happened. This is a high quality exclusive brush that is designed for getting on the inside of mouths. Actually, I'm going to use my skin color and blend with this a little bit. Maybe that's a good way to get our lip color. Not the best look. It looks like she's missing teeth. That's not what you want. That's a bit better. It's a bit better. I want to pull some of this brighter color down here as well. Well, skin's certainly looking more blue on stream. That's for sure. Eric says, but isn't a melee fighter missing teeth more realistic? True, but not what I would like. And certainly not for a lady fighter. It's just a harder look to sell, I think. Like, Maybe that's what you get for not having your helmet on, missing a few teeth. Yeah, with this, like with an open mouth like this, the lips are gonna be pretty thin. So definitely think this is a subtle outline that you want to do for this sort of expression. I mean, if we overblow it, we can just clean it back up again with more purple, but how is this reading? Barely. That's the... You know, sometimes when you're painting lips, it just ends up looking like Mr. Popo, and you gotta fix it. Sometimes that just happens. Alright, I think maybe we can leave it for now and circle back. Maybe once the armor... Is this... You know, if I lean back, and look at the model, I feel like for my tabletop view, it probably looks already way more than adequate. You're like, well, the face is painted and there's values from far away. So by that metric, guys, I think we're good to proceed. I think I'll tell myself this was a mission complete. We painted a face. Now we'll move on. I think that's what it'll be. Omegon's twin asks at what the 40k. Oh, I missed another message. What was this? Let me scroll. Omegon's twin says, at what the 40k, maybe the real battle is a debt we gained along the way. Omegon's twin says, at what the 40k, thoughts in Grey Knights getting no new models this edition? Yeah, this edition. Yeah, that feels super lame, right? The minimum viable product for a new edition product is a single character model on a 40mm base, usually. Yeah, actually, you know what? That's just because Space Marines are more popular. But typically, that's how the minimum viable product goes, right? Like, Tyranids had a big release this edition, but next edition, I think you'll probably see like a Red Terror on a 40mm base. Well, maybe 50, because he is a monster, and I think Raveners are on 40s now. But you get the idea. No, Raveners would have always been on 40s. Yeah, what do you have this time for Grey Knights? An upgrade sprue for the worst unit ever. Probably one of the units that more people would agree than disagree could be put to pasture and redone, and people would probably be fine with it. Broadly speaking, I'm sure the Dread Knight has its fans, but it is Derp City. Okay, let's wash down this hardened carapace from before, and let's do another thin coat on the armor. Just a sufficient base coat to build up a little bit of hardened carapace with some... What color do I use? Dawnstone? Yeah, I think it's Dawnstone. I was also surprised to see... Somehow, I guess I finished my Nuln Oil. Or I misplaced it, but that shouldn't happen. Paints should be with your paints. Paints should be with your paints. I'm thinking next thematic list build, we might actually do a list build for the word bearers, because that new detachment has some validity for word bearers. It's something. I think it's better than the pact-bound zealots, which is a argument I will make and prove, factually prove, with facts and logic, that it is better, because pact-bound zealots is just so bad. But I think we can make a word bearers thematic list build. I think the actual right pacing for that series probably is Imperium, Xenos Chaos. Anyways, that's what I'm thinking about going forward, anyways. Omega says, upgrade sprue for the ugliest model? Yeah. Like, how awesome would just a Psychic Dreadnought be instead of that, right? It would be, and it would make so much more sense, right? Because Psychers are supposed to be rare. And being able to be a Space Marine is also rare. So it's like twice as rare and twice as valuable, each Fallen Astartes. So they should have Psychic Dreadnoughts as a common thing. Well, perhaps more common, we can say. How good is the new detachment? The Chaos Space Marines one? It has some good tools. I thought creatively, like thematically, I thought it would be a copy and paste of the Librarius Conclave. But I was sort of surprised to see there are some genuine mechanical differences between both. It has some good tools. You can tune up your AP, I think, by... I think you tune up your melee AP if you're near a Psyker, or no, if you're near a Demon Prince, and you tune up your weapons, your ranged weapon strength if you're near a Psyker. So you can play to that. Word Bearers can play to that too, right? I'm thinking 3 Masters of Possession. Just around the army with demon engines, that kind of thing. Something like that. That's probably where the list will start. Look at that brown drawing. We're certainly looking better. Oh, look, we gotta paint the arm. See, this is where the push fit comes in handy. Gotta put some paint on this piece. I think it's looking pretty good. Pretty readable. Omegon's twin file is a T-Suns detachment at first. Funny timing with T-Suns coming out. Maybe it would feel bad for Thousand Suns players. I mean, they still had their other detachment. God, can we just appreciate how much better the army rule is for Thousand Suns now? This idea of, like, getting rid of Cabal points. It's a terrible concept. And I mentioned it earlier, right? 9th edition we saw a proliferation of overly complicated army systems, right? It's like whoever's writing 9th edition was in love with this idea of overly complex, like obtusely complex army rules that you have to track multiple layers, and each one is once per game, and each time you use one, you choose between two, and it's like, fuck off, right? A lot of factions in 9th edition fell into that kind of rules template. And they simplified almost everybody's army rule in 10th edition except for Thousand Sons. And I was like, why? Why'd you keep that? Our Bumper Gaming says, looks good to me. Awesome. The paint job looks good to you? I'm going to assume that's what you're referring to. And I will disregard any comments which say otherwise. Paint job looks awesome. You hear that, everybody? Eric Brandenburg says, I only wish At with the 40K would attend Nova Open. Well, maybe someday. Maybe someday. You know, it's more likely I'll end up going as like a guest. I just don't think the channel's big enough to have any sort of serious attendance. I mean, I think you'd have to have merch, right? I think it'd be fun to participate in Nova at like a narrative event. How cool would that be? I do want to put on a kind of... I want to take a page from Northern Exile's book and talk to my local game store about running an event, though. I think that could be cool. Something more local, something smaller scale. I think that is certainly plausible. If downright possible. Yeah, probably. I'm sure I could get that to happen. Our Bumper Gaming says, thank the algorithm gods. I am new to everything miniature. Been binge watching your painting videos and your channel popped up. Ah, the good old painting videos, eh? Yeah, I haven't done any of a formal painting video in a while. Or a formal hobby video in a while. Streams are... well, they're less work to produce. No surprise there. I will be doing a Tyranid video, though. For Gengar's Norn creature. That I can guarantee. That I will say publicly because I want to ensure it happens. I'm waiting on the parts. Waiting on the parts for the conversion. And then we'll make a cool video about it. From concept to tabletop. That sort of video. We'll walk through on the design process and some B-roll of every step along the way, that sort of thing. Similar to the Terran Effects video. Similar to that one. Eric Brandenburg says, bro, I bet folks would just watch you paint. Well, if you think it's that good, I'm flattered. See, the problem is, like, I think I'm a fairly good painter. If I'm being honest, I'm not trying to blow steam up my own ass. I think I'm a pretty good painter, but I find I'm quite a slow painter. And I think that's the problem. I need a warp bubble to speed up time around me locally. and then a camera could capture that footage live, and then it would become compelling, I think. Once that is invented, once that technology becomes available at a low cost, I think we're cooking. Can I remove the shield? Is it what? I'm gonna go for it. Okay, so in the interest of keeping everything as interesting as possible, as quickly as possible, I'm gonna jump around. I'm gonna paint the metal skirt, the scale mail. That's a technical term. Our bumper gaming, because I'd watch that. With double speed time dilated painting stream. I mean, I think you technically can. But not live. Not live. Okay, we need a sort of an old brush. Sort of an old brush to apply our metals. Well, if you're new to all things miniature, or bumper gaming, feel free to ask any questions, and if I see them, I'll try and answer them. Look, this is too thin. It is an air metal paint, but a little too thin, I think. Eric Brandenburg says, when I retire, I want to do an after-action review of 40K games with military graphics and Pat McAfee style over-the-top commentary. But I don't think anyone does a 40K channel like that currently. I don't think so either. Well, to be honest, I don't watch too much 40K channels. I watch Winter's Bat Reps, and that's basically it. Omegon's twin says, oh, at What the 40K, did you see the commemorative model that was an Ultramarines captain that looked like a Primaris Cantor? Indeed I did, Omegon's twin. I had a similar take. I was like, they're slowly starting to paint these Ultramarines like Crimson Fists. Actually, we'll paint these belt loops, or not, these scabbard loops, rather. Paint those metal. Okay, so then that should look good once a wash is applied. But like I said earlier, I think I lost my Nuln Oil. Or it was stolen by paint gremlins. Maybe we'll go with that. Oh, here's a question for you, chat. So, where's my test model? Oh, God. Oh, God. Are we alive? Okay. So the test model is here. You can see how I've done the sword, or the blade tip here. Sort of like a gradient of just white to black. I think it's a simple but elegant look, right? Now, how do we adapt this for the hammer, right? You can see the hilt is just gunmetal, basically. Gunmetal color. But for the hammer, these components would be gunmetal, right? Because it's part of the hilt. But would the entire anvil of this hammerhead all have those gradiented faces? Or if we go by where this gemstone socket is that part of the hilt? So is this part of the hilt, and is just this one face the blade tip equivalent, right? The hammer, the striking surface. Maybe we'll go with that. You tell me. You tell me. I'm going to go with my gut instinct, but I'm curious what you guys say. I also burned myself terribly. Not terribly, that sounds so dramatic. Burnt myself while cooking. So, apologies for the hideous disfiguration on my hand. Oh my God, Twin says, I watch you and 40k in 40 minutes. Oh, nice. Quick digestible bat reps. I can see the appeal. I mean, going over the face with a wash actually might just help bring out the natural details of the model, get some bonus definition, so I can probably look into that. So we can try like a Reichland flesh shade, but it's a little bit of a risk. We'll see. Our Bumper Gaming says, I came about 40k via gaming and then started watching Astartes. Classic entry point. Well, not classic, but an unsurprising entry point, I'd say. Watching painting videos reminds me of watching Bob Ross on PBS. Nice. Eric Brandenburg says, I hope you put Neosporin on it. Yeah, I had I had some stuff on there. Some disinfecting topical agents. Should be fine. I don't feel infected. Should be all right. Should be able to avoid a stronger hand situation. Okay, let's put a bit of... You know, even though I don't have Nuln Oil, I might be able to just use a contrast diluted well enough to still get that gunmetal look. For the weapon hilt anyways. For the scale mail, I want it to be fairly bright. But I'd like something to sit in those recesses, if you know what I'm saying. Our Bumper Gaming says, about to pick up the Horus Rising and start there. The Horus Heresy series. Yeah, Horus Rising. I think the first 5 books are super solid, if memory serves. It's such a coherent ride that feels like... Yeah, the best reference I could make is, like, it feels like early MCU. Like, early Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? Where one story is linking to another story, and you're like, wow! Things are interweaving in a satisfying way. And then after, I think, the 5th book, I think the book after that is Descent of Angels, which is time skip, Dark Angel story that's unrelated to the current momentum you're on, and it feels very narratively jarring. The Horus Heresy series is kind of a mess, so I think it's best to just pursue the factions you're interested in and give them a listen. That's probably the best way to go about it. I don't think it's worth going through every single book, personally. There are highs and lows in that series. That's for sure. Okay, I'm gonna try out that contrast. We're gonna dilute it with... That's not black. There we go. We're gonna dilute it with a custom wash. We're gonna mix the potions. We're gonna see what happens. Whoops. Oh, this Uno background music. Pretty chill. Didn't know Uno had such bass music. Eric Burnenberg says Crimson Fists are awesome. Indeed. That's true. Oh my God, Twin says I love them and run them as both normal Marines and Templars because they canonically have an Emperor's Champion. Oh my, R Bumper Gaming says at Overguns Twin, I found Trench Crusade yesterday. Was impressed. They sell their STL files to print instead of buying the minis. Yeah, Trench Crusade will be very interesting. Very interested to see how that rule set evolves. And part of me hopes that it just won't. That you just have like a Mordheim type situation. Okay. So we've mixed the blacks. What phrasing? We've mixed the contrast black with the wash, the black wash. And we're going to apply it and see. It is not behaving as I would like. Jesus, you guys hear that? Someone's got a super loud subwoofer outside. It's terrible. My apologies if it sounds like Godzilla stomping around. Yeah, this is no good. It's not terrible as a wash because it's going in the recesses, but terrible as a darkening layer. So we'll use it for just that. Omegon's twin is departing. Take care, Omegon's twin. Until we meet again. Let's try a bit of Reikland Flesh Shade on the skin. Hopefully I don't regret it immediately. Eric Brandenburg says, at with the 40k, so she is going to be a red bone in skin tone then? Mix the black. Yeah. Yeah. Phrasing. That's me. I'm not sure what the red bone reference is. Is that a Skyrim thing? I can't remember. Yeah, I don't like what this is doing. It's certainly evening out the overall color temperature, which I don't hate. I think I'll wick away most of this. Okay, so wait, where's my size 1? Oh, we'll use size 0. Okay, next we're gonna layer up our armor values. Just try and bump up that readability a bit. Ah, Eric, I see what you were trying to communicate. And I appreciate the clarification. Uh-oh, what was that? It's nothing, everything's under control. And we get a bit of Dawnstone and go from there. So we're mixing Dawnstone with that hardened carapace color. Yeah, sort of working with a range like this. Okay, so let's start layering up some values. The best part, right? The best part. I find you can skip some areas, right? Like I guess the underneath of the bust line here, you just leave that base color, and I think, you know, goes right off as shadows. I think it'll read just fine. So we can cheat where we can. Now I put so much work into the face, so I feel like it's less likely to be judged. They're judged harshly anyways. I clean up the collar. Yeah, that's one part about painting faces. I find I get paint all over the gorgets. Gorget? Probably gorget. Eric Brandenburg says your speech is so articulate out with the 40K that sometimes I forget you are Canadian. Ah, thanks, I guess. Yeah, all I can say is that I try to be. I try to be efficient with my words, but it's not the most natural thing for me. It does sound like a half compliment, though. So I'll take the complimentary half. We were painting Stormcast for a little while, and I'm waiting on a package from Artel. So they sent me, well, I've been told there's something for me to paint, so whenever that arrives, the painting streams will probably pivot in that direction. Okay, so we're gonna create a gradient on the peak of the shield. So right where the breaks are, we'll put our grayer tones. And these are upward facing surfaces too, so they're sort of priority. Like, you don't want to leave them untouched. That's what people are going to see most of the time. And we'll probably try and create similar gradients along the bevel of the shield also. You know, I thought about keeping consistent all the way around, but maybe we'll just mirror it. Maybe that'll just look best. Eric Brandenburg says, not ripping on you being a Canadian, but as a Canadian, it is unreasonable for me to assume you'll be familiar with my local slang. Fair. Eric Brandenburg says, I still say AI will never be able to paint minis. Probably... No, not. Not until the AI is in our robot body that can hold a paintbrush, right? However, it is possible that color printing becomes possible in 3D printing. And if that's the case, then maybe the AI could color set those components and it could look really good. Like, you could have a pre-painted AI color scheme that comes out in your print. And, you know, I'm sure it'll be crude at first, just like how most technology is, but given time, it probably will be crazy good. Right? Now we're talking like Star Trek Fabricator. Or whatever it's called. I don't think they call it a fabricator. But that's what it is. It's the fabricator machine. Let's put some lines there. Maybe a highlight down this plate. So you just put just enough of a gradient on these armor parts, and then you edge highlight. Looks pretty good, I think. I mean, a nice wash helps, but man, after not having the gnome oil present is... It does stymie the plan a little bit. Eric Brandenburg says, but imagine a face color printed that way. Imagine a face color printed that way. I mean, I think eventually that's believable. Probably even better. Right? Because then whatever your print resolution is, in theory, it could be colored on that same sort of resolution, right? It's like, what's the current standard for 3D printing? Like 3 microns? 3 micron layer height? Something like that? That seems like a decent resolution for picking out details and even creating texture, probably. I gotta tighten up the eye shape, I think, a little bit. I could use an ink. I could use a black ink, which might be better. But I think the coverage is fine here. I think I had the eye looking okay, and now I kind of hate it. Definitely a risk. That's what they say, right? You learn more from your mistakes. That's a saying. That's a thing. That's a thing people say to make themselves feel better. Yeah, it's better. So now I'm recalling. That when I was painting those Genestealer cultists for the kill team, which actually I didn't finish doing entirely. I think there's a few guys in that squad that are not painted. But in any case, when I did that little project, I realized that if you paint eyes always looking in one direction, you don't have to worry about trying to get the eyes looking as if they're both oriented towards the same. Like, basically, it's easier to just point both eyes to a corner, so your character's looking, your character's looking over there, over that way. That's an easier sell than making them look straight on and having both eyes aligned to a center point within the corners. So it's almost easier, especially if the pose allows, just to point them to a corner. Then I think you get a decent read. You get some decent readability, and I think it's easier. Right, you see half the face looks fine, half the face looks fine. When you see both, you're like, oh, it's looking over there. Eric Brandenburg says, what I am shocked that nobody is 3D printing stamps of common 40K logos. Stamps like for creating wax seals, Eric? Is that to what you are referring? That is a good idea. Little wax seal. The problem is I don't send letters all that often. But if I did, man, how dope would a wax seal be? Then we paint this mustachioed face here. Actually, we need to pick out all of the spikes. Uh-oh. I mean, it's not that important to stay within the lines, right? Eric Brandenburg says no, like a paint on the stamp. Then press the stamp on a large flattish area of a model. Oh! Eric, that's a great idea. I guess not all models are flat, but for your vehicles, now that could be a huge quality of life improvement, especially for crude factions that like to manually paint things so they're not machine perfect. Like orcs teach their cults, but even Space Marine rhinos, right? You have your chapter stamp them on your doors. Even battle damage, you get battle damage stamps. That's a super good idea, Eric. Super good idea. I do think it's probably mostly applicable to vehicles, but when you could have curved stamps for things like shoulder pads, that's probably possible. That is likely possible. I'm trying to think what other stamps you could come up with. You probably have effect stamps. Like, it's sort of a build off of the battle damage idea, but you could probably have stamps for, like, I'm thinking Night Lord's lightning effects on armor parts. Like a generic set of lightning patterns, and then yeah, so a little bit of overspill there, but it's honestly fine. Honestly, it is fine. all of the armor needs to get washed, and then the whites have to get built up. Because right now it's very gray. I'd like it to be a bit brighter. But not until it is washed. What we can do is build up... What is a safe area to build up? I guess we can work on the hammerhead. Let's put a bit of paint in here. Is that reading at all? Eric Brandenburg says, I'm texting my attorney about licensing now. Nice. Eric Brandenburg says, out with the 40k, I have to know. You have one bolter round left, but there is a heretic to your left and a Xenos to the right. What do you do? Oh. What offends me more? It depends on the Xenos in question, right? If it's an Eldar, I'm probably shooting the heretic. If it's a face hugger, I'm probably shooting the face hugger. Right? Like yeah, because not all Xenos are as immediately threatening. And if you're going from the unenlightened average Imperial citizen point of view, all aliens are horrific. But, you know, I think even still, the face hugger versus an Eldar, the face hugger is just way more... kill that thing, right? I can tolerate a heretic much more than I can tolerate a face hugger. Yeah. That's my final answer. Oh, you know what? We have to clean up the scabbard. Oof. It's a little difficult to parse out. Such small details. Actually, in fairness, it's not that difficult, because if you did your wash step on the white areas, all of this would be clarified. Right? Washes just increase readability. Yeah, the trickiest part is the little gemstone there, which I do want to paint on these models. Nothing as crazy as painting Eldar gemstones, but I do want some vibrant points on the models, sort of like socketed jewels, and I think those gems are perfect for that. Just little areas of spot color. Also helps differentiate units one from another. You can have your blue squad and your green squad. Then we'll paint some hair. How long have we been going for? Oh, we're just already at the 2-hour mark. Whoa. Whoa. Did not expect time to fly. was honestly hoping we had a bit more time. Maybe we'll just paint the hair real quick and then call that a stream done. I don't think I'm being too optimistic. I don't think I'm underestimating anything. I think I cracked the hair code. And all I want to do is add a few blue streaks. I'm thinking of how Superman's hair would look in old comic books. Where it's black with like this kind of blue highlight, and that's kind of all you have for definition. So it should be a fairly quick process, and I think it'll look good. We'll see. It's going to be a bit of an experiment. Probably could just stick with like a white or a gray, and then tint it blue as well with a contrast or an ink or something. Okay, so that's the hair blacked in. And while it dries, I'm just going to pick up the earring with our Prussian blue. Excellent color. AK's Prussian blue. I want to pick up this earring because I think it'll go a long way considering we painted the face. And I can't exactly tell what it's supposed to be. Maybe it's just like some teardrop looking gemstone. We'll probably just go with that. Oh, but if it's a gemstone color, then it should match the other gemstones, right? Shoot. Done fucked up, guys. Done fucked up. Okay, we're going overtime. We're going overtime with the stream. We have a very important task to deal with. Jeez. Okay, there we go. I think this is gonna have to be Green Squad. I think this will have to be Green Squad. So I'm just prepping my AKs, not AKs, Scale 75 Forest Green color. Jesus, probably not one. Okay. Yeah, this color, Black Forest Green. So we're gonna put this down. Man, this paint is kind of like drying out. Certainly not ideal. Okay, so we have our green color. And we're gonna go over... Oh, I feel like we're losing light. Do my eyes deceive me? That's just how I was holding it. So look at that. How cool is that? A little socketed gemstone. Neat. Definitely neat. It's plus 5 to dexterity right there. We got some gemstones here. Then I have some Oh, I was going to say I have some bright green on the palette, but it appears I don't. It's dead. It's dead. I want to mix this color. Moot green. Mix in some moot green. Just to get a little bump up in those values. And I think because the scheme is so dark, these gemstones should be hyper readable. They don't have to... I don't think you have to paint too much of this on there. Right? Look at that. Look at that. It's just socketed right in there. How cool. Then we'll do the reverse side. I don't think that's bad. I think that's looking pretty good. For the hair, that is certainly dry enough now. We'll take our Prussian blue and... I'm just going to try Prussian blue. Let's do a quick bit of layers and we'll see how that reads. And we'll go from there. Right, just painting in the direction of the hair flow. That's the idea. So these strands are going this way. Another. Oh, and then it goes into this braided situation. I'll have to do another pass with tighter brush streaks. Tighter lines, but in the same direction. What are we looking at? Okay. Okay, this one weaves up like that. So actually, I don't know if... we'll try going with a high saturation on our highlight color. So it'll be very blue. If that's a mistake, we'll see. I'm a little concerned it'll look weird. This would have been a good head to add, like a wind-swept ponytail or something. It starts to look like a Fire Emblem character when you do that. But unfortunately, I don't have any extra hair bits. I had a few from the Artel models, but I think I used them all up. Eric Bradenberg says, see at our Bumper Gaming. Every 40k player forgets to use their grenades. Grenades is... It's so good. It's the best. It's... I'm beside myself. Annoyed by the whole situation. Because... I've gotten so used to throwing grenades. It's such a luxury. And now that I've jumped over to play Tyranids in 40k for the last bit, I'm just like, wow, no easy access to grenades, no tank shock, no smoke screen. Well, now we have one unit, right? The Psychophage can do smoke screen. But, man, it's still, like, no access to grenades and tank shock is a huge detriment to an army. Especially when you're dealing with these, like, anvil units, like the Terminator squad I was mentioning earlier, the Rubric Marines. Rubric Terminators led by the Sorcerer who puts models back in the All Is Dust detachment. Like, fuck me. It's like, it seems like such a severe prospect. It's like splashing water on a wall when you're dealing with those kinds of units. And we don't have the mortal wound economy of 9th edition. Could be that I'm overthinking it, or they'll just be that expensive, but... Yeah, in any case, makes you really want grenades, right? Makes you really want grenades. Okay, so I've mixed up a little bit of light blue on the palette here, and we'll see. We'll see if it's good or if it's terrible. Already, I'm feeling kind of nervous about that. Or feeling kind of iffy, rather. Eric Brandenburg says, I will defer to care. You're going to watch Edmonton lose again? No, I will not. I will not, because I'm not much of a sportsman, if I'm being honest. So this this Liberator, it's definitely a newer model, right? It's a Age of Sigmar 4.0 starter set model. But the hairstyle is reminding me a lot of the head from the old Evocator that I have. Now, it's an older model, but I painted it sort of more recently. So now I'm wondering if this head is just a copy-paste of a GW digital asset with a slightly changed front haircut and expression. I borked the lines over there. Jesus. Yeah, I kind of hate this. Kind of hate this haircut. Okay, here's what we're gonna try. Yeah, Prussian blue is just way too saturated. It's so powerful. I can dilute it a little bit with this cool blue, but... Right, it's still such a subtle difference. Yeah, we'll probably have to go with some sort of pale blue, like a Thunderhawk blue maybe. That's probably the right color to use. Dang. Look, this is how you learn. One does not simply paint blue hair. I do think it would look cool, though. Well, if we break it up, it's certainly less loud. So we can try that. We can try that. Well, I don't hate it. I don't love it either. I'll probably leave it. It's probably sufficient enough for thumbnail purposes. I'll paint this hammer gradient this way. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. I'll get some white scar. Where's the white scar at? Just mixed a bit of white scar with this gray, but definitely not the effect I'm going for. I kind of want to push the values more. You want it to end near black and near white. Well, Jesus, what happened? Butterfingers. Kind of want a similar gradient here, and probably on this side as well. We'll paint Just the one side, then we're going to wrap up the stream. That's what we'll do. That'll be today's goal. That's a neat effect. I think we'll go with it. Not bad. Okay, so I think what we should do is probably put some of that custom null oil in the recesses here, and then do a little edge highlight, because I think that'll actually look really good. Though I do desperately need to pick up some actual null oil. Put that in all the recesses. And while it dries, I'll get some of that Dawnstone. It's actually not Dawnstone. I think this is Dark Sea Gray, but I am just going to mix it into my existing, well, what remains of the hardened carapace. I think that should yield a good edge highlight color, and all I want to do is kind of quickly define the edges of the shield, because it is forward-facing. Pick up the raised edge here. I think that sort of picking up these emphasized details goes a bit further than all the other small stuff. What is this? Yeah, it's dead paint, that's what that is. I think it's a pretty cool hammerhead. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. Almost like a graphite or something. Not a graphite, but granite. That's the word I'm thinking of. Granite. Granite sounds so much fancier than granite. Okay, we'll pick out the edges. We'll get some more white scar. mix it in, and that should be sufficient. I don't think the other brush will work for the inner edge, so I think we just need a nicer brush. Good test of the red maple. Not as... We'll try this one. Okay, this is working. I'll put some color down. Alrighty, guys. I think from this point onwards, the stream is. We're gonna wrap up the stream. I think she's looking all right. Bit of a weirdo with blue hair, but I think one weirdo in the squad isn't a bad thing. Alrighty, well, we'll wrap up the stream here. Thanks for everyone who tuned in and shared the hobby camaraderie. And I'll hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya.